What's going on, guys? My name is OOTIKTAKOO and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Marshals set. First thing to note about the Marshal set, I guarantee you have 3 pieces of it because it drops a lot more often than that goddamn seismic helmet. I know you know what I'm talking about. Go check your inventory. I bet you have 3 pieces. And with this build that I'm going to show you, although it's not as good as the seismic set, it's probably the best co-op option, especially if you have friends a level or 2 above you trying to help you out. It can provide a decent amount of damage and a decent amount of CC all together. All in all, it is a mishmash of the seismic build and the melee build, but allows you to do some decent damage and survive. It's got it all, really. And with a few perk changes here or there, you can end up doing a decent amount of tanking for your team as well, allowing your better geared teammates to kill everything for you. But before we jump into the video, a big shout out to Advanced GG. You guys can see it right there. Absolutely fantastic energy drink. The taste is amazing. I've tried other ones, even just to support my friends who may be sponsored by other brands. I'll try it once or twice and that's it. Never use it again. I legitimately drink this stuff every single day. Advanced GG. Check it out. I highly recommend the mango and the fruit punch. Link in the description below. And if you order till this Tuesday, you get 30% off using code RTT30. It helps support what I do. And if you want to help me continue to do so, it really does help out. And if you guys like guides, gear, and gameplay, think about subscribing. That also really helps out in the algorithm and does help the channel. And lastly, if you want to check me out at Twitch, twitch.tv/RoundTikTak. We stream 4 days a week, and we'd love to see you there. With all of that out of the way, please check out Advanced GG. Let's jump into the video. So let's talk about the Marshals set. I know you guys have it in your inventory, and you can craft it to the point where it becomes pretty good, and you can even get away with doing like a budget build with it. On top of that, we're going to use the crafting table to let you guys see the perks easier. I did this manually last time in the melee build, but we're going to use this just because it becomes easier. This video has taken me a lot of takes to get right because I want to talk about many things, but I do not want it to become confusing. So this section right here is just going to be the weapons. And speaking of weapons, you know we're going to have a death shield in an AP build somewhere along the lines. I know that you guys know that this weapon is hard to come by and not everybody has it, but that's okay. You don't need it necessarily for this build. It just makes everything do a little bit more damage. There are some things that you can grab that can replicate this effect, and we'll talk about those in just a second. The second weapon is, even though I absolutely hate this weapon, well, not the weapon, the mod on the weapon, and I really hate when people abuse it, this build just works way too good with Moaning Winds, and I just had to succumb to it and actually use it. I do my best not to abuse this perk. I just use it to clear off an enemy or finish off something tankier a couple of times within the mission. You can really abuse this. I choose not to, but let's talk about some other weapons that we can use. Anything we're looking for once you see exactly what the build's going to do is large AoE weapons. That's what we're looking for. So we're looking for the juggler with scrap grenade. We're looking for grand opening that comes on the darkness charmer. We're looking for the umbra. Anything that gives us non-aiming AoE abilities. I personally like Shadow Comet. I think it's a really good ability. This is what I use. The reason we're using these is because the Marshal set is going to buff and share all of our anomaly damage. And as you guys know, mods and melee attacks are anomaly damage. So this is what we're looking for. If you don't have Fortress, that is completely fine. Use something that has a decent amount of burst damage, such as Lightning Whip, or just some AoE to it, like the Damascus Offering, or the Juggler, or Ravenous Locust. You have to have one of these perks that just has a ton of AoE damage on it. That's all you're looking for, and it will work with the build, I promise. This is probably the ideal 2, but feel free to try any others that you may have. So with the weapons out of the way, let's talk about the armor. And this is the part of the video that's taken me a lot to get right. In this build, we have the Marshal set. My gear is not absolutely perfect, and I would change out some things if I could. I also have no cooldown shards, because who the fuck has cooldown shards? They are the rarest thing in the goddamn game. Don't at me. The Marshal set in general, though, is like a baby's version of the seismic gear and can do some decent damage. Let's talk about the set bonus as it is right now. Endless Mass pulls enemies and causes up to 4 of them to share 10% anomaly power and 30% weapon damage for 5 seconds. The weapon damage means absolutely nothing to us because our weapons hit like wet potatoes. They're literally no damage whatsoever. But that 10% anomaly share is decent and allows for our skills, melee attacks, and mods on our weapons to do even more shared AoE damage. And the last thing we're going to talk about before we jump into everything that's on this build is the white perks you're looking for. Really, you're only looking for 2 things: anomaly power and cooldown reduction. That's it. For any purple gear that you may have, make sure it has those 2 perks. We want our abilities up as often as humanly possible, and we want all of our melee attacks and abilities to hit as hard as possible. Anything else on the build is perfectly fine. I don't care if it's skills life leech, bonus firepower, whatever. As long as you have those 2, you're in good shape. So to start us off, we have the Marshal's helmet. On this Marshal's helmet, it has wide horizons and double jump. Double jump is a core component to this build. This is part of the debuff process for a Devastator, having these 2 leaps, and we'll talk about it why when we get there. Secondly, we have wide horizons on our Endless Mass. This pulls all the enemies on the map into one general location where you and your teammates can then take them down quite easier, and where you don't have to chase around the map for every enemy you encounter. So let's talk about Marshal's armor. Again, we have anomaly power and cooldown reductions, which is perfectly fine. And then this is where more debuffing comes in. Endless Mass, anomaly damage against affected targets is increased by 33%. So we're doing, and our teammates are doing an extra 33% anomaly damage. This works really well if anybody on the team is using anomaly power or procs their mods after they are pulled. Anything along those lines helps out this perk. On top of that, it helps us out an absolute ton. That increased anomaly damage is huge because you know how well Captain Hunter and like the Tainted Blood 25% perk, all of those scale really, really well because they're multiplicative. So is this. It does a lot of damage. Human Comet increases the skills damage by 129,000. This is a fantastic mod because our Gravity Leap is actually going to do as much, if not more damage than even our Earthquake. Next, we have our Pants. This has power assimilation on it. There's 2 things to note about this. 1, I don't really like this perk, but I kind of have to do it. If you can replace this pair of pants and use the legendary shoes instead, feel free to do so. But power assimilation is not bad. It's just pretty niche. Certain maps this is fantastic on, such as Frontline, and it really works really well with the alphas. The alphas, for some reason, are considered elites when talking about this perk, but not other perks. It's weird, I know, but power assimilation comes on this. We are going to add extra Quake here. If you don't want to have extra Quake in the build, you feel free to put something else here to make it more kind of a synergistic co-op experience. Something that you could add here is this one, Shattered Armor. If you're playing co-op with friends running bullet builds, increases weapon damage against affected enemies by 20% for 10 seconds. That's pretty awesome. You'll pull them all together, your teammates will take them down. Me personally, and especially for solo play, I like having 2 Earthquakes, so that's where we put this in. The second thing you could swap for this, if you would like to, is Brawl. Brawl, we're going to be meleeing a lot in this build, and it scales off our anomaly power, so this is really, really good to have into the build as well. Lastly, if you have this mod, but I took it out of this build guide because I know not many people do, is Unstoppable Force. This goes really well and similar to our melee build that we put out 2 days ago, but this goes really well with the build, allowing us to get almost 300,000 anomaly power, which just makes all of our damage hit a lot harder. But I know not a lot of people have this, so I tried to keep it out. Lastly, the other thing that you could put in here is Captain Hunter. Captain Hunter, you guys know what it does, 25% more damage to captains. But you do lose out on an Earthquake, but just know that I think this is the better build. That's just me, especially for solo play. It allows more AoE and quick kills than it does for more bonus damage. Your damage is pretty good. You just need a little bit more uptime on your skills. Then our gloves here, we have Ground Crush for just bonus Earthquake damage. Again, if you're not running Earthquake, have a better pair of gloves. These are just the gloves that I have that work best with this build. So that is part of the reason why we have Earthquake in the build. Then we have Tainted Blood here, increases the damage dealt to enemies afflicted by bleed by 25%. Endless Mass bleeds the target that's in the stone, but not the enemies near it. And our melee attack bleeds. That's it. Those are the only 2 things that we have that bleed, and it's enough, I promise you. This is the other debuff part of the build. This is for you and your teammates. Since we have 2 gravity leaps, this is a 3 times scaling modifier. This is absolutely dumb, and it is ridiculous amounts of damage that you and your team can do to single target damage. I have hit for 4.2 million damage on an impale when my teammate was running this and he was in the execute range, etc, etc. Lastly, we have Untamed Power. Since we are a very hardcore AP build, if everything's on cooldown, the last thing we get to use is our melee attack, and this works with the 5 skills we have: 2 earthquakes, 2 gravity leaps, and 1 endless mass, and it works with every melee attack thereafter. It ends up being a lot of damage, but this is just what I have. Feel free to change this for one of those mods that we discussed a little bit earlier if you don't have this or don't have the proper setup. That is what I'm running. That's why I'm running it. We talked about some other mods that you may be able to use and some other weapons you might want to try. Let's jump into the skills we are using and why they work. First, we have Earthquake. This is our main damage dealer. Endless Mass pulls everything together. They all take 33% more damage, and then, especially how we're going to play it, they're all going to be bleeding as well. So this ends up two-shotting almost everything in the game. We don't need 3 of them. 2 is plenty, and this is our bread and butter damage ability combined with melee attacks. Then we have Endless Mass on a 15-second cooldown. I would like this shorter, but again, who the hell has cooldown shards? Lastly, we have Gravity Leap here, and this is actually going to be doing a ridiculous amount of damage. Look at the base damage on this, 247,000. After they get Endless Mass, they take 33% more damage, and on top of that, after the first comet, the second one has the full Despair buff on it too. So they're taking 247,000 damage, times 33%, times 3 per 3 times 3. It's ridiculous. I've had Gravity Leaps hit up for 1 million damage. It's really, really crazy. A lot of fun to use. The enemies just basically explode. Now let's talk about the skill tree here. As you guys can see, it is like a hybrid between the seismic build and the melee build that I posted 2 days ago. But I'm only really going to talk about the important nodes here. This node right here, Strong Arm in the Anomaly, is good, not necessary. If you have the Pyro mod, it's even better, and I would use this exact setup if you have that Pyro mod that we were talking about, Unstoppable Force. Regardless of that, it does increase your resistance piercing for every enemy hit. The play style here is Endless Mass, Run Up, Melee, 2 Gravity Leaps, Earthquake, Earthquake. That is your entire kit dump. That is what you are trying to do, and not mess up your rotations by doing so. As you can see here, although we are down in the seismic tree, we take 0 bleed buffs whatsoever. No bleed duration, no bleed damage, and we don't even take blood donation. We have Skilled Sentry, which increases our armor and resistance, and we have Protected by the Anomaly, which gives us about 150,000 armor. These 2 things combined with this makes us quite tanky. However, I have played without Protected by the Anomaly, and it's a lot more risky. This is definitely my favorite version of this build because you guys know I tried to test everything. Lastly, we have Strong Arm of the Law, and you can put Brawl in the build somewhere if you want to figure it out, but this is what we have here because once everything's on cooldown, we run our melee attack, and it does a decent amount of damage with all the scaling and anomaly bonus damage. The build is not the best in the game. It's not, but it's probably the better one for team play, especially if you're a little bit lower than your teammates, and it can be soloed and get you through anything CT 15 gold. It may not be the fastest build, but it'll get the job done. Just like me. May not be the fastest, but I never get the job done either. So that is your Marshals set build guide. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. We have more to come. There's a poll somewhere on my channel. Feel free to check it out. Make sure to try Advanced GG. It is a fantastic energy drink, and you'll save hundreds of dollars if you stop buying Red Bulls. I promise. It is very, very good. Link in the description. RTT30 on checkout. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Tic Tac out.